guys, welcome to my little paintbrush. My name is Miss Cami, and today we're gonna go under the sea and paint this really fun sea turtle together. So I'm glad you're with me, and I hope you're ready to have some fun and get a little creativity time in. Before we start our painting, I want to remind you that you can pause this video, rewind this video. You can even do some of your painting today and some tomorrow. Don't feel like you have to accomplish it all at my pace and in this time frame. So if you're feeling a little overwhelmed or stressed out about your painting, just stop for a second or pause and catch up and really try to enjoy the experience, okay? Now I'm going to grab a good flat brush. This one is a number 12, so it's really good for smaller artists. You of course can size up in your flat brush, but I'm going to start with a number 12, and I'm going to get it wet in some clean water just to loosen up those bristles and get them ready. Now here's our palette today, really fun turtle palette. Obviously we're going to go for some brown first. I'm just going to load my flat with some brown, and I'm going to start with this because brown tends to need layers, and so I want to get the first one in so it can start the drying process. And I am just going to fill in my shell with this flat brush here. I'm not going for perfection, definitely not concerned about brush strokes right now or anything like that, because this is again just a layer in the painting. It's the first layer, so usually this one is not really going to be seen at the end of our painting, so not worth stressing about. Again, we're just getting paint on canvas or surface right now. Of course, if you have our paint kit, your canvas will come prepped just like mine is right now. However, if you are just painting along with me at home and you don't have the kit, you're welcome to follow the links below. It'll take you to our website page that has this pattern on it, so you can go ahead and do that. Or maybe you're feeling brave and you are just freehanding the whole thing and you've traced it on yourself. I think that's awesome. Whatever level you're on or experience that you have, go for it. No rules here, as long as we are just enjoying creating together, maybe learning some skills, maybe brushing up on some skills, whatever it is for you. Okay, so you can see I just kind of went around in between my legs and stomach area and put that in. Now I'm going to rinse my brush really well so that it doesn't have any of that brown in it. And now I'm going to make my turtle color. So you can see I've got a nice pile of yellow and some green. I'm going to scoop up some green and start to mix. It doesn't take a whole lot of green. It's mostly yellow to get the shade that we want. I do want to save some yellow, so I don't want to use all of it. I'm going to get a good amount mixed together here. And then I'm going to pull in some white and mix white with some of it. Again, not all of it. And you can really be the judge. If you want more lime color, you can pull in more yellow. That's totally fine. Mix, mix, mix. Like I said, I do want a little bit of that yellow left, so I'm trying to save some of that. But I think that's a pretty good shade there. And now I'm going to start to fill in my turtle here. And this goes pretty quick, maybe just a touch more white, just for, there we go, coverage. anytime you're feeling like your surface needs more coverage, that is when you want to refer to your white paint. And that'll help fill in your areas better. But we're also going to come back to this with another layer. So I'm just, you can see it's just really quick that I'm putting this in here. Come down to our fun legs. If you're painting on a wrapped canvas, be sure to wrap your edges as you go. That's important to have a completed piece. Really the only reason that you wouldn't is if you had plans to frame your art. That's usually why an artist wouldn't go ahead and wrap their edges. So if you plan on framing it, then more power to you, but typically I'm not framing my art, so I like to wrap the edges. Okay, you can see it's not like perfect coverage. Like I said, that's why we will be going back to it. So we're just getting paint on here. Let's not forget our cute little tail here. It's kind of towards the bottom. I'm going to use the toe of my brush to get that point, so I don't necessarily have to switch brushes for it, okay? And then we'll come up in the head and the neck area. Got lots of paint, so I'm kind of offloading onto my surface here. I'm going to go around those eyeballs as nicely as I can, trying to prevent having to reshape those. But if you get anything in there, that's okay. We have to be willing to forgive ourselves during the creative process and acknowledge that we're not perfect and this is not a print. This is hand painted. It's going to look that way. It's going to feel that way. It should look that way. It should feel that way. So be sure to remind yourself of that every once in a while so you don't get too overwhelmed with the whole process. All right, another good wash. And now I'm actually going to switch to a bigger flat just for speed purposes. It's going to fill in my background faster. You could definitely keep using your number 12. This is a 3/4 inch flat though. I'm going to get it wet. I'm going to bounce back to some clean water. And I've got my blue and white here. And I'm just going to kind of roughly, you can see very roughly, mix those together. I want this background to be pretty streaky, and so I'm not going to give it super good mix, okay? Definitely need water though. I can tell by the texture of my paint here and how it's coming off my brush that it needs water. Okay, so we're just going to start to fill this in, and we got to slow down as we get close to our turtle, but I'm not super concerned about perfect lines right now because I am going to come back and do some more steps and some outlining and other things like that that are going to really clean up my edges. So right now the focus is getting paint on my surface. Okay, so I'm just going to continue to do that. And I'm not being super particular about my brush strokes either, and you'll kind of see why in a minute because we're going to come back and make it look sort of like lots of ripples are happening and reflections in the water and all kinds of stuff. So, oh, got a little blue in there. So I'm just going to get some blue on there and then add some character as soon as everything's filled in. Now again, these eyes, I would rather leave a bit of white around them than I would to go inside of them and mess up the placement of them. So I'm not going to get bud right up against them, plus they will have a black outline, so that would be extra headache that I didn't need to put myself through. Now, of course, you can switch your brushes around if you feel like you can't get into these small spaces. I just use the toe of my brush, so I'm facing my canvas like my brush is a ballerina, and that helps me get in those areas without having to switch to a new brush. Okay, so, but that also comes with a lot of experience and understanding brush pressure and such. So if you're not to that point yet and you would rather just switch to a smaller brush to get in there, then that's completely up to you. When you are the artist, you get to make those calls. So that's pretty exciting. Okay, so right now we just have bare minimum here, just very rough. Put the paint on the surface and go for it. Now we're going to add a little bit of character. I'm going to keep my brush loaded with that light blue, okay? But I'm going to add chunks of white to my brush, and I'm just going to start to pull in sort of these, almost like these ripple marks around my turtle. Now, maybe I'll want to blend those in a little bit more in places and not have them as chunky, okay? And that's fine too. But once you get those on there, just kind of let them start to create character within this painting. You can also bounce to your darker shade of blue and have fun with that too. My surface is a little bit smoother than you if you're painting on a canvas. The texture of your canvas will leave kind of these rougher brush strokes behind, which I actually really enjoy. Put some dark right here. And really one of the tricks is to know when to stop brushing an area. Once you get a nice kind of streaky look to it, kind of back off and let it be. Sometimes I like to say, oh, down here is going to be a little bit darker because we're going to maybe shadow a little bit more. And maybe add just bits of white. Okay, so there's no rules here. I'm just going around my turtle in the direction and shape of the turtle. Okay, some white, and then maybe wherever I feel like, oh, that took over a little bit too much, I can go back with some blue and have just a good time with it. I find that this particular technique is pretty difficult for people because it's choppy. It's not smooth, right? And it's not necessarily well blended either. And so that tends to be difficult for people to accept it on their own canvas, which is totally normal. We'll look at someone else's and we'll go, oh, that looks super cool. But on our canvas, we can't accept it because we're OCD and it's bothering us. So kind of try to be okay with it not looking perfect and wait till the end result to really critique it, because you might be surprised. Okay, switching back to my medium flat, I'm going to go into my brown and give myself another layer here. This layer should be a little more quick in coverage because I've already done the hard work here. So this one should go in pretty quickly. Using my fingers quite a bit tonight. You just use whatever tool is at your disposal, right? Okay, so I just put another quick layer. Again, brown is tricky, but real quick, I'm going to get the tiniest bit of black and mix it with some brown. So I want to create basically a nice deep brown, okay? You can see right here I've got that happening. I'm just gonna bring it into a nice pile, okay? I'm gonna wipe my brush, not necessarily wash it, and then load again with light brown. Get some of that dark brown on one edge of my brush and follow my shell with that dark edge. This will be kind of tricky maybe for you to see at first. But you want to kind of keep that dark, do a little shadow right there. You want to kind of keep that dark edge around the, closer to the outside of your shell than on in. Okay. Again, we'll come back with more definition to our turtle and our shell later. But right now we just want to create a darker edge happening around our shell and then blend it in. Make sure we come around here. Okay. So just kind of fill it in and then again get that dark edge. Okay, then this little section right here. And of course you should rotate your canvas to wherever you're comfortable. I'm kind of stuck in my position, but you can rotate it. I'm going to put just a little bit of white on my brush and I'm going to brush through while it's wet, just some kind of highlights, kind of little scuffies. Okay, you want that brown to still be wet so that you don't have this super bright white happening. You want it to blend in there pretty well. Okay, we're just kind of scuffing up the shell a little bit. Awesome. Okay, give a good wash, a good rinse to our brush. Coming right along, it's coming together. I'm covered in paint everywhere like a true artist here. Okay, so let's go back into our light green. You can even add some white for coverage again. And we're gonna go through and we are going to put in another layer. We've got greens and browns here today. And greens and browns, unfortunately, are kind of shy and tend to need a little more love, especially when you're trying to keep them rich in color and you don't want to add too much white. It gets kind of tricky. But I'm just going to put this in pretty quick because more than anything right now, other than just getting some extra coverage, I want to wet the surface of my turtle so that I can do some blending. Okay, notice again, you can see white peaks happening, just like little bits of white coming through, you know, almost like I haven't completely gone to the edge of anything. And that's okay to have that right now. Let that be. I promise you, we will go back and we will, in the end, get a nice clean line there's no point in worrying about that right now. It'll just cause you to have to slow down and then kind of feel overwhelmed even more. So I want to show you my greens here. You know, we saved some of that dark that we mixed with yellow and green before we added white, and that's really going to be what I use now to shadow. So I'm going to make sure my brush has that light green on it, and just like I did with the shell, brown shell, I'm going to put some of this on just one edge of my brush, okay? And then I'm going to take that edge and I'm going to follow the inner edge of my turtle, the shape, okay? So you can see we're getting sort of this nice dark edge as we go around here. And you can just kind of blend that in as much as you want. I like to kind of come in with it and kind of streak in some of that color too. See that? Just kind of brush it in. You're working with a bunch of wet paint, so you should be able to get some pretty decent blends throughout this process. That's the only way you can get any kind of blend with acrylic paint is if you've got wet paint. Once your paint dries, you can't have that experience, and it's really frustrating. So that's why a lot of times people say, Miss Cami, you paint so fast. I want to have the opportunity for some good blending before I move on to the next thing, okay? So that's one reason why I do that. Move kind of fast. If you can't see a good contrast between your light green and this color that we've chosen here to go around the edges, if you're not seeing contrast, you need to kind of go back to the drawing board and see if you need to add more dark green to it. You should be able to pick up contrast between the two of them. Okay. And it will lighten, obviously, as you are mixing it with this light green over and over again. But if you can even go to that dark, dark, dark green and just kind of make sure that you have a nice dark edge to work with and that you can see contrast happening. Be careful though, because that dark green without yellow will pull pretty turquoise, you know, and you don't want too much of that happening. Oh, we got some of the wrong green on my brush. So just blend it out there. Anyway, you can definitely go through and just add little touches of it like that if you want. Depends on what you're going for. Okay, I'm going to come down to my tail. It's a little trickier to get that in there. But you see, now we're going to go around the center. Okay, so circles, they're tricky, but they're doable. And we're just going to kind of follow what we've done here. And we're going to take that dark edge. Okay, and I'm really going to blend that in. I want to see the dark edge, right? Because that's really going to define the separation of the legs and the arms and all that. However, I want to make sure that I'm also blending in, because this part of my turtle is getting dried, so I might have to go back to my light paint and just kind of blend it in, okay? Make sure I get that nice. And again, you can go and just get a tiny bit of that super dark green and add it to be sure that you have that dark edge. But you can see it's gonna pull a little less limey on its own. So make sure that you work back and forth between those two, dark green and your other green. This is looking fabulous. Getting some nice tones happening, some nice values in here. So awesome. How are we doing? Feeling good, feeling good. Still feel like this part of my turtle's head my face got kind of taken away with some of that other green. Don't be afraid to just visit areas of your painting over and over again. Sometimes I don't leave an area for quite a long time, just trying to work the surface to get it to the place that I want. That's totally fine. You can do that, not a big deal. Okay, we're gonna just let that dry for a hot minute. And back to rinsing my brush I go. Now we're gonna go into our eyeballs. So I'm gonna get some black on my brush. I'm still using my flat. This is my medium flat, not my biggest one. And I'm gonna shape in the black part of my eye, keeping a white moon shape on the top. I love how this turtle just kind of starts to come to life once these specific features are added. It's just amazing to me how it just like suddenly you have the cutest turtle ever, and it just happens so quickly as we get these in here. You can see kind of a trick to getting a clean line is to press your bristles so you kind of flatten them out, and it pushes all the paint to the edge of your brush, and then you're able to really just kind of control that edge. You know, I always feel like I'm in more control of my paint with a flat than I do with a small round, which always surprises people because they think that the smaller the brush, the more in control they are. It's really just how you use it and whether or not you understand what you can do with it. All right, my paint is feeling quite dry, so anytime you have that happening, you need to visit your water. And it really can make a difference. The weather, the temperature of the house, do you have a fan blowing on you? All those things are going to make a difference. Okay, wash my brush again. This time, obviously I need to spend a lot of time making sure it's clean because I just used black and we don't want to have any blackout situations. All right, I'm going to take a touch of white over to some yellow. It's going to have a bit of green with it, but that's okay. I'm going to get as much moisture out of my brush as I can. And then I'm just going to come into the belly of my, oh, we need some more white it looks like. Sometimes it's better to start with just barely any before you go all in. Now I'm just going to brush in some of this yellow. See, I'm just kind of brushing in the shape of my turtle here, this sort of C shape, okay? Really struggling to get the shade that I want. I keep thinking it needs just a touch more white. There we go. Okay, and then we're going to do some going this other direction as well. Okay, now if you feel like you want to fix anything, go back with your green. We can paint over it, okay, because that wasn't coming off my brush the way that I liked. And then I can kind of come in here and just lighten up this area of my turtle here. Come up, put some green on your brush. You can kind of blend that green down. Go back and put in some dark around your edge. So just kind of work it. Remember what I said about blending your paint, right? You want to blend wet into wet. So as things start to dry, you're going to notice that you lose a lot of that opportunity, and that's kind of what we're seeing. So you might have to go back to your colors to re-wet the surface. Okay, so I'm going to pull some of the yellow into the legs here and there. Okay, as much or as little as you want. You decide the statement that you want to make and just enjoy it, just have fun with it. If you want to bring some in the face, you can. I tend to not go too crazy in the face of my turtle. I'm going to come back to my belly here, make sure it's looking the way I want. Again, gotta blend wet into wet, and as it dries, we struggle a little bit. All right. Looks pretty good to me. We are right down to our detail work. So let's grab just that. Let's grab a detail brush. Let's get it wet and let's really loosen up our black paint. You can see I'm just going to go into my water, into my paint. I'm mixing in that water. Detail work can be the worst. Oop, brush down. Detail work can be so frustrating, or it can be really enjoyable. And I'm telling you, 99% of that will come down to the paint and if it's the right consistency. Okay, so let's start at the top of our canvas and work our way down. So I'm going to go ahead and give a nice forehead there. And here we go. We're going to start to go around the eye here. Now these are pretty thick strokes for outlining. And when I created this, I did them thick on purpose. I wanted people to feel like you can have a really good outline without it being super, super thin. A lot of people think that if their outline is thick, they've done something wrong. And so I purposely did this one thick so that you could see that that's not the case. It's just kind of a personal preference, and it's all about pressure. So if you want a really thin line, just put less pressure on your brush. But you can see this is where we're really going to go through and do our cleanup work that I was telling you about, where you don't need to worry how close you were getting to your edges, because we're going to go through and clean it up, and that's what we're doing now. Okay, so basically we're going to outline our entire turtle, which seems pretty daunting. But it really is amazing practice on controlling your brush, controlling your strokes, controlling everything, and understanding your brush better. So I always tell the kiddos that paint with me that they'll say, Miss Cami, do I have to do the outlining? And say, you know what, bottom line, at the end of the day, it's your painting. So no, you don't have to do the lines, but if you want to improve, you have to do the things that are uncomfortable. And outlining for new artists and young artists can be quite uncomfortable. All right, I'm just working my way around my turtle. Anytime my paint feels thick, I'm going to dilute it some more. That is not something you should delay. If you feel like your paint is too thick or you're not able to get a decent brush stroke without the paint just sort of stopping on you and not finishing, then you really ought to consider just stopping altogether, checking the consistency of your paint. We're so close to being done. This is going to blow you away how fast the rest of it goes in. Okay, so now we kind of have to get around that inner circle, which is tricky. So let's just do it in sections. So we'll just go from that arm to that one. I want to make sure I don't have any of that green coming through there. See how I'm not trying to whoop the whole thing in one stroke. I'm going to do it in sections, and that'll take the pressure off of me to get it perfect. Okay, and that's always nice. Less pressure is a good thing. Almost done. We've almost gone all the way around. Again, move your canvas to make this an easier process for you. You do not have to sit upright the whole time. That is really tricky and just unnecessary. If you can move it, move it. Oh, now it looks clean. You can see those lines make a difference. Okay, let's do some fun strokes up in our head here, face rather. These can be eyebrows or just facial wrinkles, whatever you want to call them. You can see though that my stroke gets thicker as it comes to the edge of my turtle, but then I thinner stroke as it comes around. So that's again just pressure, so I'll push hard and then I'll kind of pull away. Just some fun things. While we're here, we're going to do a smile, and I like the really deep smile for my turtle here. So I'm going to just go deep with that. Look how fun that is. Oh, I got a little black right here. Got my hand in it. Again, this cute guy or girl, she just comes together once you start getting all these fun little details going. Look at this. Isn't it fun? Okay, couple more, and these are going to go down the belly area, so they're a little bit trickier, but we're just going to do our best. We're going to kind of go in this U shape. Okay. So there's one. We've got 4 of them. Press as I come to the end of that. You can see I just press so it's thicker towards the end. I've had a lot of artists just completely leave this step out. And again, I'll say it again, it's okay. I'm never offended by that in any way. This is just to inspire you. What you do with it is completely up to you. Awesome. I mean, it's just so stinking cute and fun. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my very biggest flat. So the biggest brush that you have around is what you want to go to. We're going to use the bottom and kind of put some, I don't know, freckles, if you will, on here. And I'm going to use the bottom like a stamp. And I'm going to start to put these in. And I want them to vary in size. And so some I'll put a lot of pressure on it and a lot of paint, and others I'll just kind of, just a little less pressure. Maybe I just want a teeny tiny one, and so I'll just, you can see just the tiniest. Okay, so a few in the face. I'm gonna come up here to our arms and do a couple, and you can kind of swirl the brush. You can see I swirl it a little bit to get maybe a bigger or more defined circle. So you can definitely do that. But see how they kind of vary in sizes. That's a good tip. And you don't always have to do 3s. Right here I'm just gonna do 2, but I do want this one to be bigger. And then I'll come over here, and you can do more than I've done here, or less than I've done, or maybe none at all. Your creation. Okay, again, just wiping the bottom of my brush. I'm not washing it, I'm just wiping it because I'm going to do some white dots. Same technique in the eyes, and I'm going to do a big one and then just a smaller one above it. Guys, just look at what that does to our painting. I mean, it's amazing to me what details can do for a piece. It just blows me away every time still, and I've been doing this for a long time. All right, I'm gonna make sure my detail brush is clean, and I'm gonna get some white on it. And I'm just gonna go around and give just a few little highlights here and there where I just feel like I wanna brighten up my painting in some way. It just might come through in some areas. These can be different for you. You know, adding little bits of white through your painting will brighten it. So if you feel like you're kind of in the dark, I might come over to the shell too. If you're feeling a little like your painting is dark, this will really help it. Now I'm going to come through and sort of go along the tops of these. I want to be careful, some of them might still be wet, but I just want to add a little bit of light again on those. Well, friends, we've painted a turtle together and I'm in love. I hope you're in love. Let's sign it. That's sort of an indication that we're proud of our art, and we all should be. Your signature is your very own. Make it your own. It can be however you want it and be placed wherever it fits for you on your canvas. Remember that this is yours, and so it can speak to who you are, and you don't need to change that for anybody else. Thank you so much for joining me. If you liked this video, give me a thumbs up. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel because we do drop free tutorials weekly and you won't want to miss that. And come back and paint with me soon. I hope to see your art. Tag me in any pictures and have a fabulous day. Bye, guys.